Kanye was a criminal who loved to kill young girls, and his name was a whispered legend. His face was often shown in late-night news broadcasts that chronicled his cruelty quite regularly. He was a horny predator whose meanness was matched only by the unsettling meticulousness of his crimes. His path to infamy was paved with the quiet, calculated devastation of the innocent. From a young age, Kanye felt a profound sense of powerlessness, a crushing insignificance in a world that seemed to ignore him. His existence was a series of slights and rejections, a constant feeling of being overlooked that ultimately hardened into a vengeful ambition. He didn't just kill. He annihilated a person's life, a person's sense of self, and then their very existence, all as a desperate attempt to reclaim a sense of control he felt he had lost in his own life. Each victim was carefully chosen, a deliberate target whose youth and innocence served as a canvas for his twisted artistry. He was a meticulous killer, studying their routines, habits, and vulnerabilities with the detached focus of a scientist. His intentions were never about tangible gain. He didn't steal money or valuables. His true motive was to exert absolute power, to transform his own past feelings of worthlessness into a terrifying display of dominance. The media's fascination with his every move was the only validation he had ever known, and he became a master of his own macabre stage, carefully orchestrating his crimes for maximum public shock and terror. He enjoyed going home after his latest killing and turning on the news, to hear what cities had to say about his famous persona. He craved the fear he instilled, the desperate pleas of his victims, and the horrified faces on the news. It was all confirmation that he was, at last, significant, that his life amounted to something worth talking about. He had to be seen, to be feared, to be known, to prove he was not the insignificant boy he once was. He loved to kill, and he was damn good at it. Yet, for all his dark ambition, he had always felt a gnawing emptiness, a desire for a challenge so great it would define his twisted legacy. That ambition ignited the moment he saw Princess Belle. She was a vision of radiant beauty, her face a frequent subject of royal portraits and a symbol of unattainable purity. To sully that perfection, to bring her down to the same chaotic, violated state as the lives he had so cruelly taken, became his new, obsessive goal. It would be the ultimate act of defiance against a world that had once dismissed him. That fateful evening, fate, it seemed, conspired with his malice. The king and queen, weary from their royal duties, had slipped away for a rare, quiet date night. The castle and all its workers breathed a collective sigh of relief. The guards, feeling the absence of their sovereign's vigilant eyes, relaxed and lowered their defenses. A momentary, almost imperceptible flaw had appeared in the impenetrable armor of the royal stronghold. Kanye moved with the quiet confidence of a man who knew the castle's secrets better than its own inhabitants. For weeks, he had been an invisible shadow in the royal gardens, a silent voyeur meticulously chronicling the ebb and flow of court life. He had memorized the changing of the guards, and the exact moment the moon cast a long, forgiving shadow over the south wall. He knew which flagstones creaked underfoot and what areas to avoid at what times. Approaching the sprawling stone walls from a forgotten corner of the royal grounds, he found his chosen entry point, a centuries-old ivy that had woven a thick tapestry over the cold stone. It was a natural ladder. Its tendrils were as strong as rope, and were able to sustain the weight of his body. And so, he scaled it with a fluid, practiced grace. The cold dampness of the stone seeped through his gloves as he climbed. He slipped over the parapet, and tiptoed past a dozing sentry. He navigated the labyrinthine corridors. He knew the plush crimson carpets would dampen the sound of his movements, but he still moved with a cautious precision. His eyes were constantly scanning every shadowed alcove and corner. Alas, he had finally reached her chambers. He peered inside but found it empty. Frustration arose from his gut. His meticulously planned act was unraveling out of his control. Then, a new sound cut through the silence of the empty wing. It was a low, melodic gurgle, followed by a faint, echoing groan. It was the princess's stomach, a sound so mundane, so exquisitely human, that it caught him completely off guard. He realized with a jolt that she was not in her chambers. She was in the royal kitchens, seeking a late-night snack. The sound of her hunger was so loud. He wondered what kind of princess would need to starve herself to this level of hunger before deciding to eat. He followed the stomach gurgles and crept toward the vibration of the sound of her stomach. His heart was pounding with a mixture of anticipation and a strange, disorienting, perverted desire. The air grew thick with the intoxicating scent of cinnamon and candied sugar, and so did his pants. He peered around the corner of a grand pantry door and saw her, a vision of effortless elegance in the soft yellow lamplight. Her golden hair was in a loose braid that cascaded over one shoulder, and she was perched on a stool, her face illuminated as she prepared a plate of delicate, sugar-dusted pastries. She was more breathtakingly beautiful than any painting, more radiant than the moonlit statuary he had passed in the gardens. And for the first time in his life, the cold, calculating gears of his mind seized. Her perfection was so simple. It sent a disorienting, almost painful thrill through his body, and the sensation landed right in his crotch. It was a feeling so foreign to him. It became a source of paralysis. In his uncharacteristic awe, lost in the simple beauty of the moment, his foot slipped on a slick patch of spilled water, and a jar of exotic spices clattered to the floor. The sound shattered the peaceful stillness of the room like a gunshot. Princess Belle whipped around immediately, shocked with surprise. A sudden, sharp gasp escaped her perfectly glossed lips as they parted in pure astonishment. "Who's there?" she called out. Her voice was so melodic to Kanye that it sent a jolt through Kanye's pants. He stood there, frozen. His well-honed predatory instincts were out the window at this point, replaced by a clumsy, pathetic, and confused desire that made his pants ever so tight. Kanye was trying to think as his perverted, conflicting emotions were getting in the way of his predatory logic. His carefully constructed plan crumbled in the face of her innocent beauty. He had stalked her, he had planned her demise, and in this one unguarded moment, his entire purpose had been reduced to a bumbling, lovesick desperation. He lunged forward, trying to attack her with an awkward, flailing motion, as if his limbs were suddenly foreign to him. In his foolish rush, his elbow connected with a delicate porcelain plate of pastries, sending them crashing to the stone floor. The princess watched as her perfectly made pastries turned to crumbs scattering onto the ground. Princess Belle's surprise quickly turned into entitled anger. She glared at him, utterly unaware of his sinister history or his murderous intent. To her, he was just a clumsy, blushing intruder who had ruined her late-night treat. "Look at what you did," she exclaimed, her voice now a low growl that was surprisingly intimidating. "I worked so hard on those. And now what am I going to do?" Her stomach rumbled again. The sound was a loud and aggressive growling sound that seemed to be getting stronger by the second. Her stomach gurgles became so loud, it started to shake the very foundations of the kitchen. It was a growl of pure, unbridled hunger. Her anger, fueled by a visceral need, began to consume her. The dainty princess facade fell away, revealing a primal, carnal force. A flash of something raw and unthinking entered her eyes as she looked at him, not as an assailant or a pervert, but as a potential meal, a solution to her dilemma that he had so carelessly created. His clumsy arrival made him no longer a threat. He became an opportunity to Princess Belle. Kanye's body was large. Princess Belle imagined it so full of potential nourishment. He became a beacon of salvation to her empty stomach. Her mind, once filled with thoughts of pastries and sweets, was now singularly focused on the immense, edible form standing before her. Her eyes lit up as she imagined his body as a 5-course meal. Driven by an insatiable hunger that transcended her royal upbringing, she lunged with a shocking ferocity. She seized him, her hand gripping his shoulder with a strength he never could have imagined an innocent girl to be able to possess. In a single fluid motion, she raised him to her mouth, which opened wider than a normal human mouth should. He was too stunned, too dazed by her unexpected strength and her strange predicament to even scream. His throat knotted up in disbelief, as the bulge between his legs started to grow. He couldn't help but admire how wide she was able to open her mouth, as perverted thoughts flooded his mind. He imagined what warmth her mouth could offer his cold body in that moment. But he was about to get his wish. The starving princess guided his whole body into her dainty pink wet mouth, and he was swallowed whole almost immediately. He felt the silky smooth velvety darkness of her esophagus closing around him, as her throat started contracting in a series of powerful rhythmic waves that pushed him downwards. The sensation was profoundly disorienting, a mix of overwhelming constriction and a strange, almost sensual glide. His body became tense with arousing tension as he was guided deeper and deeper into her throat, until finally, he fell into the pulsating universe of her stomach. The transition from throat to belly was marked by a sudden, gurgling splash into a pool of stomach acid. The warmth was immediate and overwhelming, a moist, humid heat that enveloped him like a humid sauna, a temperature that seemed to rise with every passing second. The air conditioning was so cold in Princess Belle's kitchen that this warmth sensation Kanye was feeling was rather comforting and intoxicating. The acidic fluids were far from causing immediate pain yet, and they felt like a strange, burning bomb that began to eat away at his clothes first. His rough tunic and leather vest dissolved. Kanye watched as the fabric of his pants started disintegrating into the swirling abyss, leaving his skin and bare member exposed to the strange, caressing warmth of her digestive juices. It throbbed with unusual tension and pressure, excitedly. Kanye found himself strangely, blissfully enthralled by the experience. His initial arousal had not faded. Instead, it mutated into a surreal, disoriented fascination. He felt this moment was a perverse climax to his life's work of cruelty. He was inside her, a prisoner in the most intimate of places. It was a destination more deeply penetrating than any physical act he could have imagined with a woman. The contractions of her stomach muscles as her belly growled loudly were a constant, gentle massage, and he could feel the incredible power of her body at work as it started to digest him. Kanye deeply enjoyed this feeling of being devoured by a basic, all-consuming need. Inside her belly, he felt a feeling of usefulness, and he felt good about himself as he was able to provide the nourishment this innocent girl needed in this very moment of her hunger. He had never been made to feel needed, wanted, or helpful in his everyday life. His parents always patronized him for being in the way. His teachers at school would berate him, calling him useless in front of his peers. It felt good to Kanye for finally being able to bring pleasure to someone else, even if it meant that Princess Belle's pleasure meant pain and suffering for himself. He felt his skin begin to tingle now. It was slow, consuming heat that was both terrifying and thrilling. He was being digested, not with a violent, agonizing death like he had imagined at first. Instead, the digestion process was a slow, inescapable process that felt both divine and deeply perverse to Kanye. He knew his body was being broken down, his essence, absorbed into her being, and the thought was a twisted fulfillment of his initial desire to possess her. He was becoming a part of the beautiful princess he had tried to harm, his very existence now sustenance for her. With a final deep breath, he climaxed at the acceptance of his fate, and released himself into the princess. Kanye's eyes softened as he sighed a sigh of relief from the pressure he had been holding since the moment he locked eyes with the princess. His consciousness, once sharp with malice, began to blur and soften. The pain of his physical dissolution was giving way to a strange, all-encompassing euphoria he had never felt before. His mind, once dark with vengeance, found a bizarre sense of peace in being utterly, completely possessed by her. The fear he had so eagerly instilled in others was now his own, but it was a fear inextricably linked with a profound sense of rightness, as if this were the only fitting end for a person like him. The warmth of her stomach was his final embrace, his ultimate punishment, and his most cherished fantasy. He had finally met his destiny. The process of digestion took hours. As his body was broken down and converted into nourishment, Princess Belle felt a deep sense of satisfaction spreading through her veins, a warmth that started in her stomach and radiated outwards. Her hunger, which had been a tormenting void just moments ago, was now a distant memory, replaced by a profound feeling of being whole and replenished. A long, satisfied burp rumbled from deep within her belly. The release of the gas shook her entire body and brought a flush to her cheeks. She felt a great sense of relief and well-being, as if a great physical weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Princess Belle fell into a food coma. After the sleepy food coma passed, Princess Belle felt an urge to use the bathroom. Feeling light and invigorated enough to walk by now, Princess Belle then made her way to the royal bathroom. She entered the gilded water closet and sat down on the porcelain throne. Princess Belle let out a soft groan as the immense pressure in her lower abdomen was released. The piece of waste exited her butthole in one large heavy piece. It was a dark, viscous piece of shit leaving her body, one of such heavy weight that it gently splashed her butt cheeks with a cool splash of toilet water. She took a deep breath, and a wave of contentment and relief washed over her. After a few moments, she reached for a piece of soft royal toilet paper and proceeded to wipe herself, front to back. With a final wipe of her butthole, Princess Belle noticed a small, familiar fragment of dark blue fabric clinging to the paper. It was a piece of Kanye's rough denim pants. Puzzled, she took a quick whiff of the fabric, ruffled her nose, and gently discarded it into the porcelain throne, and gave her release a good flush down the drain. She finally returned to her room after a long night of activities, jumping on her large fluffy royal bedding with a sigh of relief at all the weird circumstances that had just occurred, feeling strangely energized by the night's events. Princess Belle turned on the television to catch the late-night news, as she patiently awaits the king and queen's arrival home from their evening out. Her eyes widened as a familiar face, now forever etched in her memory, appeared on the screen. It was Kanye, the infamous killer. The broadcaster detailed his disappearance, speculating on his whereabouts, which were in the same town she was in now. Princess Belle's blood ran cold as she connected the dots. The face on the screen, the satisfying rumble in her stomach, the fragment of fabric she had just discarded. A slow, knowing smile spread across her face as the full realization dawned on her. She had not only consumed her snack, but she had also rid the world of a criminal monster. She laughed, a bright, clear giggle that filled the room, and whispered to herself, "Evil killers make a great meal."